We are in a constitutional crisis. What Donald Trump said in his meeting with President Bukele of El Salvador represented one of the darkest moments in American history. The threat to denaturalize citizens, to ship Americans to a torture prison in El Salvador, asking a foreign leader to build more prisons to ship Americans to, who are Donald Trump's political enemies, is one of the scariest threats we have ever seen from a president who pretty much operates on the basis of fear and intimidation. This is terrifying, not just for Democrats who have understood and warned about this for a long time, but it is even breaking through to Donald Trump's Fox propaganda outlet. Yes, because after Donald Trump made a shocking claim in a disturbing interview, multiple hosts at Fox can be seen visibly uncomfortable with Donald Trump's plan. We are going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, although this is a really dark time, there is one Democrat, actually multiple, but one in particular, who is stepping up to fight for the human rights of Abrego Garcia, and I want to take a look at that right here.
I saw the comments of President Bukele, and I look forward to meeting with him. I've requested to meet with him. I reached out to the ambassador here to ask to meet while he's here. But I've also made clear if we can't meet here, I do intend to go to El Salvador to discuss the release of this individual who is illegally detained. A Maryland man who's the father of 3 in a notorious prison in El Salvador. And I believe the president of El Salvador will recognize why it's important to allow him to return to the United States of America, because it is absolutely unjust and illegal to have this Marylander detained one more day in a notorious prison in El Salvador. Of course, President Trump could have just said, bring him home. Of course, he could have done that. But this is an administration that has lied about Mr. Abrego Garcia, right? The vice president of the United States tweeted out that he had a criminal record. That was a lie. They're just lying. They've gotten caught lying. They don't want to admit it. And they have an obligation to bring him home. But I will say the president of El Salvador should not now take it upon himself to say that he is detaining him for one more day, because that is kidnapping. I understand that the Attorney General said that we would provide a plane to bring him home. So all the president of El Salvador has to do now is hand over and release an innocent man and let him come home to.
That was Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, who has made it clear he will not allow this to go on any longer. Himself and a few other Democrats in Congress are traveling down to El Salvador to demand the release of Abrego Garcia. They are bravely going to a country in which at this point, I don't think that they're safe. I don't know. God, I hope, I pray. But they are, quite frankly, just putting their lives on the line to go and do this because they believe in the life of this man having value, because of course it does. Donald Trump doesn't think so. And he doesn't think that Americans' lives have value or are worth actual rights that we believe in this country. And he made that clear in a Fox interview, and it led to multiple hosts that we will see, both Steve Doocy and Jesse Waters, disturbed with what he said. Take a look.
We're getting him out, and the president is helping us with that, President Bukele. So I was very impressed with him, really very impressed. Great guy.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the
homegrowns.
The ones that grew up and something went wrong and they hit people over the head with a baseball bat. We have, and push people into subways just before the train gets there, like you see happening sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that.
Okay, so if you want...
So this was first caught on a hot mic yesterday, but he's just loudly and proudly saying it at this point, that he's happy to deport U.S. citizens, homegrowns. Like, giving it a nickname makes it even better. It is absolutely gross. It is abhorrent. It is fascistic. This is what we have come to expect from Donald Trump. We warned about it. that when he was threatening Liz Cheney's life, when he was saying he was going after the enemy from within, he really meant it. But apparently Fox didn't realize that. And both Steve Doocy and Jesse Waters were fairly disturbed. Jesse was kind of the most shocking, but let's start with Steve Doocy.
You're thrown in these maximum security prisons,
right,
and you're treated the way you see these videos. If we did that here in America, maybe the crime would go down even more.
Well, and the president mentioned that yesterday. They might do something with the homegrowns, people from the United States. I don't know exactly how that would work. More on that throughout
legally,
the day.
That might be challenging.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So anyway,
you don't know how he's going to do it. The same way he does all his other stuff, by breaking the law, Steve. And yeah, it is a little uncomfortable. You can clearly see Steve Doocy not so happy with this idea being proposed out of the Trump administration. But even more shocking, Jesse Waters asked Pam Bondi about it, and her response actually broke with Trump. And you can kind of see the relief from Jesse when she said so. Let's take a look.
Now, the president was musing about sending some of the most horrible people in this country down to that mega prison. You know, people that push ladies into subways and hit old ladies with baseball bats to the head. Is that legal to do? Is that something you're allowed to do?
Well, Jesse, these are Americans who he is saying who have committed the most heinous crimes in our country. And crime is going to decrease dramatically because he has given us a directive to make America safe again. These people need to be locked up as long as they can, as long as the law allows. We're not going to let them go anywhere. And if we have to build more prisons in our country, we will do it.
Right. That's what I thought. And now I think
even Jesse Waters there at the end was like, okay, oof. Yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't think they were actually going to do that. There's no way they were actually doing that. Deporting U.S. citizens? Not a chance. Not a chance. Even him at the end was kind of like, okay, that's what I thought. I didn't think he actually meant that. But that's what conservatives have always said about Donald Trump. That's how we got into tariffs, by the way. You remember that? Remember all the guys on Wall Street, all the CEOs talking about dealmaker Trump, the businessman, art of the deal. Which, okay, on art of the deal, what deal? He didn't write the book. I don't think he can read the book. What is the deal that we can point to that he did that makes him the deal master? We don't have one. Okay, great. I feel like he's only done bad deals. He's criticized his own deals. Whatever. But remember, this is how tariffs started. Well, Trump doesn't actually mean that. It's not what he's actually saying. Oh, you liberals, you take him so seriously. Yeah, of course. Because the worst things he says are the ones we should trust. That's what I always say. Whatever is politically damaging to Trump, that's what you should actually trust. Whenever he's talking about breaking the law, that's what you should trust. When he says the healthcare plan coming in 2 weeks, bleh. When he says he wants to deport the homegrowns, yes. When he says he wants to do 500% tariffs, yes. Those are the things he actually believes and actually will commit to. It's terrifying. It is terrifying the abuses happening within our government. And so many behind the scenes. And Rachel Maddow got into that in just a devastatingly scary report that I want to take a look at right here.
The plan this 25-year veteran career staffer was trying to stop at Social Security is something that we just started learning about last week. Social Security, under Donald Trump, is moving thousands of people to the agency's death master file, which means they're knowingly misclassifying living people as dead. Because when you're listed as dead by Social Security, you can lose basically everything almost instantly. Your health insurance, your home, your bank account, your job, your credit card, even your phone, everything. So these people are alive, but they are knowingly classifying them as dead to make it impossible for them to live in this country. They're imposing on them a kind of civil and financial death. Since we reported on that story last week, people in and around the Social Security Administration have been jumping up and down and shouting about this. Just this one Washington Post piece has 15 sources for this story. Current and former Social Security officials trying to tell the world what is happening and why this is so scary. The Post reviewed records showing that the Trump administration has already added more than 6,000 people to the death file. The White House, quote, told the Post that the roughly 6,000 immigrants they have done this to all have links to either terrorist activity or criminal records. Do they? The records the Post reviewed showed those more than 6,000 people included a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old, and two 16-year-olds, as well as one person in their 80s and a handful in their 70s. They're all terrorists? Even the 13-year-old? All of those people now legally dead, according to Social Security, which means, again, no bank account, no job, no property, no credit card, nothing. One source warned the Washington Post that, yes, they're doing this to immigrants, but this is very clearly something that they could do to anyone. Quote, anybody granted the appropriate permissions within Social Security could mark someone as dead without having to prove their demise in any way. Employees' fear was partly that a bad actor who gained access to government credentials could label groups of living individuals as dead to target them for punishment. Some of those raising the alarm worried specifically that the Trump administration might try to use the database to go after people the president dislikes. Washington Post also has a single source telling them that within Social Security, the concern about this misuse of the death master file is so high that the general counsel's office inside Social Security is, quote, preparing an opinion that will find the Trump administration's unprecedented use of the death database to be a violation of privacy law. In other words, to be illegal. The opinion will take issue with the agency knowingly and falsely declaring that living people are dead.
I talked about this in a previous video, that the entire premise for the Trump agenda is based on fear, right? That's the most powerful thing he has. He is centralizing the power of the federal government wholly within the executive branch, right? That's his goal, wholly in the Oval Office. That's what he wants to do. He's done it with tariffs. He's trying to defy the Supreme Court to say that the judiciary has no checks on him. He has decided that he gets to appropriate funds, not Congress. His tariffs are essentially a tax, so he's also carrying that power, which the legislature has to impose taxes, not the president. This is the ultimate goal. It's for Donald Trump to have all the power, but most importantly, have the threats, because he knows that it is much more powerful, much more important for him to get the pre-capitulation. Because fewer and fewer people are bending the knee. We still see it, but when they're actually faced with it, the public support behind them carries them farther than it did even a couple of weeks ago. And so he needs them to be too afraid. That's what that's all about, right? He needs them to be too afraid to step up. Because once they do, we all get behind them. So that's why we got to encourage more of the fight. Encourage people to stand up. Encourage people to protest, to get out, to fight back. And that's what we're going to be doing on this show. We're not bending the knee. We're not being intimidated. We're calling it out. And if you want to support that, as always, hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.